Gopinath Shama Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai.
Jai.
Vrindavandam Ki Jai, Mayapurdam Ki Jai, Yamuna Mai Ki Jai, Ganga Mai Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Tulasi Maharani Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga.
Hare Hare.
Srivadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shanivari Paschatadi Shatarine. Okay, just give me 1 second, get to the right verse. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, The Status Quo. Chapter 16, The Two Doorkeepers of Vaikuntha, Jai and Vijay, Cursed by the Sages. Today we're doing text 3 and 4. Text 3 has no purport, so I'll read through that, and then we'll do text 4 together. Yas tvetayorjito dando bhavadbirmam anuvratai sa evanu matosmabir munayo devahelanat. Translation. Oh, and this is Lord Vishnu speaking. O great sages, I approve of the punishment that you, who are devoted to me, have meted out to them. Text 4. Tadva prasadayam yadya brahmadaivam param hime tadityatma kritam manye yatswapumbira satkritaha. Tadva prasadayam yadya brahmadaivam param hime tadityatma kritam manye yatswapumbira satkritaha. Tadva prasadayam yadya brahmadaivam param hime tadityatma kritam manye yatswapumbir asatkrita. Everyone can chant, please.
Tadva prasadyam yadya brahmadevam param hime tadhityatmakritam manye yatsvapumbhira satkrita.
Hare Krishna. Tadbha prasadayami vadda brahma daivam param hime tadhiti atma kritam manne yatsa pumbhir asatkrita. Hare Krishna.
Tadva prasadhyamyai adhya brahmadaivam param hime taddityatmakritam manye yatsvapumbir asatkrita. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Tadvaha prasadayamya adaya brahmadevam param hime tad ditya atmakritam manye yat swapumbhir asatkritaha. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Tatva prasadayami adya brahmadevam param hime tadhiti atma kritam manye yat swapumbhir asatkrita.
Anybody else? Okay. Word for word translation. Tat, therefore, va, you sages, prasadayami. I am seeking your forgiveness. Adya, just now. Brahma, the Brahmanas. Daivam, most beloved personalities. Param, highest. He, because. Me, my. Tat, that offense. He, because. Iti, thus. Atmakritam, done by me. Manye, I consider. Yat, which. Swapumbi, by my own attendance. Asatkrita, having been disrespected. Translation. To me, the Brahmana is the highest and most beloved personality. The disrespect shown by my attendants has actually been displayed by me because the doormen are my servitors. I take this to be an offense by myself. Therefore, I seek your forgiveness for the incident that has arisen. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. The Lord is always in favor of the Brahmanas and the cows, and therefore it is said, Go Brahmana Hitaya Cha. Lord Krishna, or Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is also the worshipable deity of the Brahmanas. In the Vedic literature, in the Rig mantra hymns of the Rig Veda, it is stated that those who are actually Brahmanas always look to the lotus feet of Vishnu. Om Tad Vishnu Paramam Padam Sada Pashanti Suraya. Those who are qualified Brahmanas worship only the Vishnu form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which means Krishna, Rama, and all Vishnu expansions. I'll read that sentence one more time, if you don't mind. Those who are qualified Brahmanas worship only the Vishnu form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which means Krishna, Rama, and all Vishnu expansions. A so-called Brahmana who is born in the family of Brahmanas but performs activities aimed against the Vaishnavas cannot be accepted as a Brahmana because Brahmana means Vaishnava and Vaishnava means Brahmana. One who has become a devotee of the Lord is also a Brahmana. The formula is Brahma Janatiti Brahmana. A Brahmana is one who has understood Brahman, and a Vaishnava is one who has understood the personality of Godhead. Brahman realization is the beginning of realization of the personality of Godhead. One who understands the personality of Godhead also knows the impersonal feature of the Supreme, which is Brahman. Therefore, one who becomes a Vaishnava is already a Brahmana. It should be noted that the glories of the Brahmana described in this chapter by the Lord himself refer to his devotee Brahmana, or the Vaishnava. It should never be misunderstood that the so-called Brahmanas who are born in Brahmana families but have no Brahminical qualifications are referred to in this connection.
Sounds good.
Yastvaitayorjito dando bhavadbirma manuvratai sa evanu matosma bir munayo deva helanat. O great sages, I approve of the punishment that you, who are devoted to me, have meted out to them. Tadva prasadayam yadya brahmadaivam param hime tadityatma kritam manye yatswapumbira satkrita. To me, the Brahmana is the highest and most beloved personality. The disrespect shown by my attendants has actually been displayed by me because the doormen are my servitors. I take this to be an offense by myself. Therefore, I seek your forgiveness for the incident that has arisen. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavari Paschata Deshatarine. Very interesting section. I'll start off by repeating something that Her Grace Revati Prabhu explained in Tuesday's class, which I thought was a very good point and worth repeating and worth keeping in mind because it helps us to understand what's going on here. She mentioned how this chapter is called The Two Doorkeepers of Vaikuntha Cursed by the sages. And she said, well, actually, the curse happened in the last chapter. So why is that the title of this chapter? And she explained that because in this chapter, Vishnu allows the curse. And unless Krishna allows the curse, or unless Krishna allows anything, then whatever else we do is not, or whatever else anyone does, cannot happen, will not happen. What to speak of cursing the devotees. So because of that, although the curse externally appeared to happen in the last chapter, this is the title of this chapter because Vishnu himself is here allowing that curse to happen. So I thought that was a very good point and worth remembering. So in the first text, text 3, Vishnu himself is feeling responsible because of the offense of his servants. So this is also a very important point. Even in ordinary society, if a servant does something bad, does something wrong, then the master can be held responsible, or even if not held responsible, it reflects badly on the master. Just like if a president appoints some person to a government position and that person turns out to be a rascal, then it doesn't make the president who appointed that person to the position look very good. It reflects on him. Or if in a family, if a child of the family does some wrong or makes some mistake or commits some offense or goes off, leaves aside good behavior and good practices, then the whole family becomes a little bit implicated. So one way to look at this is that also in our ISKCON movement, Srila Prabhupada said that a devotee should be a perfect gentleman. He was asked, how can we tell one of your disciples? And Prabhupada said, he is a perfect gentleman. So a perfect gentleman means for our sadhana, for our own self-respect, and for our own good practices, we have to behave properly. But it also means that if we don't behave properly, then it reflects badly on the ISKCON movement. It reflects badly on Srila Prabhupada himself, and even on Krishna himself. If a devotee does something wrong, and devotees have done things that are wrong, it reflects badly on Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada didn't himself do anything wrong, but this is a very natural way to think. That, oh, if devotees are doing this or that or the other thing, why should I listen to their guru? Or in a family, there's a saying. This is from the Tirukural, which is probably the most famous Tamil language script. I don't know if you call it scripture, but old book, and it's full of all sorts of sayings. It's sort of a South Indian version of the Niti Shastra. And in it, the person says that the son's duty to his father is to make the whole world ask, by what great austerities did he merit such a son? So this is actually the duty of the servant and the master, that the servant should behave in such a way that the master becomes glorified. The son should behave in such a way that the father is glorified. And if the son or the servant behaves in a way that the master is not glorified or his reputation is impugned in some way, this is a very sad thing, a very unfortunate thing. Therefore, a devotee should always be for perfect gentlemen, perfect ladies and gentlemen. If we behave well, it will reflect well on our ISKCON movement, on Srila Prabhupada himself, someone will naturally think, oh, this person is so nice and so intelligent and so compassionate and so well behaved. They may think, or we can directly say, if I have any of those good qualities, I learned that from Srila Prabhupada. And in that way, Srila Prabhupada will be glorified. And Krishna will be glorified. That, oh, there's something, if the people who follow this Krishna consciousness are so nice, Krishna must be wonderful. And maybe I should look into it too. And if we don't do it, then we're doing a disservice to ourselves and to Srila Prabhupada and to the whole movement. Even though, like in the case of the father is actually the maker of the son, the educator of the son. So naturally, any good qualities will reflect on the father because he's the source of that. And naturally, with the devotee, we're the parts and parcel of Krishna. We're studying Krishna's words. We're following Krishna's instructions. So naturally, it will reflect well if we behave well. And if we behave badly, the fault is our own, but still it reflects badly. Just like in this case, and Lord Vishnu himself accepted that, oh, my servants have behaved badly. The fault is mine. He voluntarily accepted the blame. Now, we discussed a couple of weeks ago and several times over the past few weeks of discussing this pastime, we've discussed, who gets blame. Is it the Kumar's fault? Is it the Dwarpal's fault? So that's there, and that could be discussed in different ways. But for the sake of this pastime, Lord Vishnu himself is saying, yes, these are great brahmanas, important brahmanas. My servants committed a fault, and therefore I accept responsibility for it. So this is this first text 3, that Lord Krishna himself is accepting that. There's a story when His Holiness Satsvarup Maharaj was Srila Prabhupada's servant at one time. I think I've told this story before, and those who read these pastimes may have heard it before. He was Srila Prabhupada's secretary, not servant, his secretary. He would travel with a servant and a secretary. And part of that secretary means he's handling all his communications, his letters. In those days, it was all snail mail, postal service. So Prabhupada would dictate letters, and Satsvarup Maharaj would type them out and mail them out. And in one letter, Srila Prabhupada had dictated and said to the person he was writing to, I think an Indian gentleman, and he was explaining something, and he said, here you can see I'm enclosing this earlier letter, which explains this point, so you can read that. So after a day or two after that dictation was given to Satsvarup Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada asked him, so did you mail out that letter? Satsvarup Maharaj said, yes. And then he said, did you include the copy of the earlier letter in it that I said was going to be included? And Satsvarup Maharaj said, no, I didn't. I couldn't find that letter. And Srila Prabhupada got quite angry. And why did he get angry? He said, oh, I said in the letter that I'm enclosing this letter, and it wasn't enclosed. That will make me look foolish or irresponsible. Why have you done this? And he was very strong, actually very strongly chastising Satsvarup Maharaj, who actually started crying. And in describing this incident, Satsvarup said about it that he said, if I'm remembering the words correctly, he said something like, Srila Prabhupada was not impressed by my show of tears, by my I think he said something like, by my moist display of emotions. He was not impressed. And the real point was that Srila Prabhupada wanted it rectified because it reflected, Satsvarup Maharaj's mistake reflected badly on him. So finally he said, so what are you going to do about it? And Satyam Maharaj said he was in such a distressed state, he had to sort of, pull himself together and think about it. And he said, and finally he figured out that, okay, I'm going to send a letter to that person apologizing for the missing letter, and I'll try to find the letter and send it to in a future mailing. And Prabhupada said, yes, then go do it. So this was a case where a devotee made a mistake. You could say a small mistake. Something was supposed to be included in the letter and it wasn't included, but it reflected badly on the master. So there's so many reasons why we want to behave properly, mainly so we can advance nicely in Krishna consciousness, but we also need to help maintain the prestige and the purity of our ISKCON movement and the prestige and the good example of Srila Prabhupada, that people will say, oh yes, those devotees are so nice. So let me see what Srila Prabhupada has to say. So this is how and why Lord Vishnu is accepting this responsibility, because they were his devotees, because the Brahmanas were offended, and he's the perfect master. He's protecting his devotees, but he's also holding them responsible. So this is very nice. Then in the second verse, Lord Vishnu gives another reason why the cursing is appropriate. He says, because these four Kumars are Brahmanas, and the Brahmanas are so special and so beloved to me. What is it? Go Brahmana Hitaya Cha, Jagat Hitaya Krishnaya Govindaya Namo Namah. How's that?
Namo Brahmano Devaya.
Yes, thank you. Namo Brahmanya Devaya, Go Brahmana Hitaya Cha, Jagat Hitaya Krishnaya Govindaya Namo Namah. That Namo Brahmanya Devaya, Lord Vishnu is Brahmanya Deva. He's the worshipable deity of the Brahmanas. And Prabhupada says Brahmana means someone who worships specifically is worshiping Vishnu, not worshiping someone else. That's not actual Brahmana. Namo Brahmanya Devaya, and Lord Vishnu, because of that, he's famous as Go Brahmana Hitayata. He protects the cows and he protects the Brahmanas. Go Brahmana Hitaya Jagat Hitaya Krishnaya. So Go Brahmana, first he protects the cows. Second, he protects the Brahmanas. And Jagat Hitaya Krishna. And third, he protects the whole world. Govindaya Namo Namah. I offer respects to my obeisances to Krishna, the protector of the cows, the land, and the senses, and to Brahminical culture. So this is the Brahmanas. Lord Vishnu is naturally so inclined to protect the Brahmanas. And these four Kumaras, Brahma Daivam Param, they are the best of the Brahmanas, the most exemplary of the Brahmanas, the most perfect of the Brahmanas. So for that reason, yes, you've offended them. And he told Jai and Vijay, you need to accept the consequences of that curse. I authorize that curse because without Krishna's authorization, it can't happen. It doesn't have to happen, but he allows it. And of course, he has his ulterior motive to have play fighting with his devotees in this world and so many things. But still, on this level of the interpretation, he's allowing it to happen because of this. Because the Brahmanas, they're the worshippers of Krishna. They're supposed to be devotees of Krishna, Vaishnavas. They're also the leaders of society. They're the educators and protectors. As Lord Vishnu protects the Brahmanas protect the whole society by educating everyone how to behave, how to act. Brahmanas are supposed to have the most knowledge, the most compassion, to have all the good qualities. Samodamo tapaksho cham, kshantim arjavameva cha, jnanam vijnanam astikyam, brahma karma swabhavajam. They're supposed to have the qualities and act in such a way that their senses, their minds are controlled. Their senses are controlled. Their life is devoted to austerities, not devoted to sense gratification, but rather to austerities. They're always very pure and clean inside and out, not just bathing, but inside they're purified by remembering Krishna. Kshantir. Kshantirs are supposed to be very tolerant. Now, it's maybe a little bit ironic that for a moment, the four Kumaras did not really manifest this quality of tolerance. The Bhagavatam says that they were bitten by the snake of anger. So they lost their Brahminical tolerance for a little while, but still the Brahmanas are supposed to exemplify this Kshantir tolerance, Arjavam, perfectly religious, perfectly following Shastra and behaving well in all circumstances, Jnanam Vijnanam, and full with transcendental knowledge, and Vijnanam, the practical execution and practical realization of that knowledge. And as Prabhupada said in the purport, real knowledge is for the Brahmana, Brahma Janatiti Brahmana, that the Brahmana is supposed to be someone who has knowledge of Brahman. And above and beyond that are the Vaishnavas, who understand Brahman, Paramatma, and ultimately Bhagavan. That's the jnana of the Brahmana and the Vaishnava. And the Vijnana is that the Vaishnavas devote their lives to worshiping Krishna. Brahma karma swabhavajam. This is how a Brahmana acts. And of course, Prabhupada explains so perfectly and so well from different angles in the purport what is a real Brahmana and what is not a real Brahmana. And he quotes one line from that, the Brahma Janatiti Brahmana, that starts off, Janmana Jayate Sudra. By birth, everyone is a Sudra. There's actually no such thing as born a Brahmana. Janmana Jayate Sudra. Samskara Bhavet Dvija. And one becomes Dvija. One attains a second birth by the performance of the different reformatory processes of diksha and education, and so many things are there. By that, one becomes Vipra. Samskara Bhaved Vipra. Veda Pated Yata Vipro. No, what is it now? It's Vedapat, yeah. Samskara bhaved dvija. By samskara, one becomes twice born. And Vedapated bhavet vipra, one becomes a vipra through study and engagement and practice in the Vedic Shastras. And then finally, Brahma Janatiti Brahmana. So to actually be a Brahmana, it's not by birth. You need to undergo the reformatory processes. You need to study the Shastras very deeply and practice them very deeply. And then when you understand the nature of spirit, then you could call yourself a Brahmana. And then when you understand that Brahman is simply a facet of the existence of Krishna, Advayam, the non-dual substance of the absolute truth, is manifest as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. And then when you understand Bhagavan, you can surpass mere Brahmanism and become a Vaishnava. Prabhupada says a Brahmana is a Vaishnava and a Vaishnava is a Brahmana. What does that mean? It means a Brahmana in the perfect stage. Just like the four Kumaras, they were Brahmanas, mere Brahmanas. But then they saw Vishnu. They appreciated his beauty. They smelled the fragrance of the tulsi at his lotus feet. And they saw how merciful he was to his devotees. Then they were no longer mere Brahmanas. Then they became Vaishnavas. Such great Vaishnavas that they became empowered to head their own sampradaya, the Kumara Sampradaya. And the Vaishnava is a Brahmana. That means a Vaishnava, if you understand Bhagavan, you automatically understand Brahman as included within, as subsidiary. Just like so many different examples Prabhupada has given, that Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan, like the sunshine, that there's the sunlight, sun globe, and then the sunlight, the sun globe, and then the actual planet or star of the sun. And if you understand the sunlight, you may not understand the actual position of the sun planet in the sky, how it's situated. Even though you understand and appreciate and are utilizing the sunlight, you may not understand that. But if you actually understand the sun planet itself, then automatically you're going to understand the globe, the vision of it as it appears in the sky, and the sunlight streaming down on you. So a Vaishnava automatically does that. And a Vaishnava automatically is supposed to, at least, a qualified Vaishnava, have all the good qualities of the Brahmana. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada and Bhaktisiddhanta, and traditionally, we include Brahman initiation as part of our advancement in Krishna consciousness. Not because the goal is to become a Brahmana, but because becoming a Brahmana is a preliminary qualification and a stepping stone to perfecting our Vaishnavism. That when we gain those qualities, samadhamma, tabak, shocham, those are very excellent qualities that help one advance in Krishna consciousness. So the goal is not to become a Brahmana, but it's a step along the way, a useful and important step. Just like after the very first Brahmin initiation in Boston, the next morning after the Diksha ceremony, the next morning, some of the devotees who had just received Brahmin initiation were, I don't know if it was, I can't remember if it was on a walk outside or if it was in the temple. They came before Prabhupada's presence, and Prabhupada said, here are the Brahmanas. And then he said, but don't be a Brahmana in name only. So there's Brahmana, and then there's real Brahmana, which culminates in becoming a devotee. In regard to this, and actually, Srila Prabhupada said about his spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he said that my Guru Maharaj has come to defeat this Brahmanism, this limited idea of Brahmanism. That was very specifically one of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's missions, which he fought very hard for. This is a little bit of history described in the Lilamrita that I'm going to read here about the Srila Bhaktisiddhanta in his young days. Actually, he was a young man, but still. In 1911, while his aging father, that's Bhaktivinoda Thakur, was lying ill, Siddhanta Saraswati took up a challenge against pseudo-Vaishnavas who claimed that birth in their caste was the prerequisite for preaching Krishna consciousness. The caste-conscious Brahmana community had become incensed by Bhaktivinoda Thakur's presentation of many scriptural proofs that anyone, regardless of birth, could become a Brahmana Vaishnava. These smarta Brahmanas, out to prove the inferiority of the Vaishnavas, arranged a discussion. On behalf of his indisposed father, young Siddhanta Saraswati wrote an essay, The Conclusive Difference Between the Brahmana and the Vaishnava, and submitted it before his father. Despite his poor health, Bhaktivinoda Thakur was elated to hear the arguments that would soundly defeat the challenge of the Smartas. Siddhanta Saraswati then traveled to Midnapur, where Pandits from all over India had gathered for a 3-day discussion. Some of the Smarta Pandits who spoke first claimed that anyone born in a Sudra family, even though initiated by a spiritual master, could never become purified and perform the Brahminical duties of worshipping the deity or initiating disciples. Finally, Siddhanta Saraswati delivered his speech. He began quoting Vedic references glorifying the Brahmanas, and at this, the Smarta scholars became very much pleased. But when he began discussing the actual qualifications for becoming a Brahmana, the qualities of the Vaishnavas, the relationship between the two, and who, according to the Vedic literature, is qualified to become a spiritual master and initiate disciples, then the joy of the Vaishnava haters disappeared. Siddhanta Saraswati conclusively proved from the scriptures that if one is born as a Sudra but exhibits the qualities of a Brahmana, then he should be honored as a Brahmana despite his birth. And if one is born in a Brahmana family but acts like a Sudra, then he is not a Brahmana. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta very strongly preached about this. And one evidence is there in the seventh canto when it's Narada Muni and Yudhishthir are discussing Varnashram, all the different aspects of it, very in depth in the seventh canto. And Narada Muni says, Yasya la lakshanam proktam, pumso varna bivyanjakam, yaranyatrapi jashyeta, tatenaiva vinirdishet. That Yasya la lakshanam means symptoms or qualities. If one exhibits the symptoms or qualities of a Brahmana, even if not born in a Brahmana family, then he's a Brahmana. And if someone exhibits the qualities of a Sudra, even if born in a Brahmana family, he's not a Brahmana, he's a Sudra. So this is very important, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta spoke very strongly here. And that essay, which he wrote on Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, is still available. And it's quite lengthy, and there's a lot to it, but briefly, I'll summarize it by chapters. The first chapter of that essay he wrote is called Prakriti Janakanda. Prakriti Janakanda means Kanda is chapter. So Prakriti Jana, persons within the material order, within the material world, within the material qualities, and within the material system of Varnashram. So what does he describe there? He, just like it said in the Lilamrita excerpt I read, he's glorifying the Brahmanas. What are the qualities of the Brahmanas? Why are they so worshipable? Why are they so glorious and so important? And why are they the heads of society? Just as Lord Vishnu is doing here, that the Brahmanas are so glorious that I cannot tolerate an offense to them, even if committed by my own servants. So this is the first chapter, the chapter that in the Lilamrita says, oh, the smartest were very happy to hear this. Then the second chapter is entitled, first chapter is Prakriti Janakanda. Next is Hari Janakanda. Hari Jan means this, the persons who are devoted to Lord Hari. Of course, there's the artificial designation of Harijans, low-class persons, but the principle is there. And Harijan means the devotees, basically, the chapter of the devotees. And in that chapter, he glorifies the quality of the devotees and why the devotees are so worshipable and the most worshipable and the most glorious of all. And then in the final chapter, Vyavahara Kanda. Vyavahara means one's behavior, so the chapter about proper behavior. And there he explicitly says that the Vaishnavas are superior to the Brahmanas. So the mundane advocates of Varnashram who want to cling to birthright, casteism, this is completely rejected. Guna karma vibhagasha, it's decided by guna and karma. And not only that, even one who is actually Brahmana by guna and karma, if he doesn't also come to the stage of Vaishnava, then even that Brahmanhood is incomplete at best, imperfect at best. And if one is not a Brahmana by any material calculation, but becomes a devotee, he's the best Brahmana. Kirata Hunanja Pulinda Pulkasha, Ambira Shamba Yavana Kashadeya. All of the sinful people of the world, all of the sinful races and sinful countries and sinful national groups, ethnic groups, religious groups, all so sinful. But yenye chapapa yarapashraya. This is very interesting. Yenye chapapa and all other kinds of sinful people of the world. Yad apashraya. Ashraya means those who take shelter of Krishna. And ashraya means taking shelter of those who take shelter of Krishna. So if any of those sinful persons take shelter of a devotee is one who has taken shelter of Krishna. And ashraya means they take shelter of one who has taken shelter of Krishna. Shudyanti tasmai prabhavishnave namah. They become completely purified because of the great potency of Lord Vishnu. Now, this is interesting also. The great potency, Prabha Vishnave, Prabha means great, power and influence and potency. Vishnave of Lord Vishnu, but you attain that by ashraya, by taking shelter of the devotees, not simply taking shelter of Krishna himself, but taking shelter of the devotees. Just like at the very end of the Jai and Vijay pastime, when it's all worked out, and as the Kumars are leaving Vaikuntha to continue their wandering, the final verse of that pastime says, so what did they learn there? They learned the great glories of the Lord's devotees. So this is the power is the power of Lord Vishnu, but it's received through the channel of the devotees. Samsara dava nalalita loka trinaya karuna gana ganatvam. That Lord Vishnu is the ocean of mercy. And he's the source of the mercy. He's the source of all the kindness and mercy and all good qualities. But the devotees are like the clouds, which carry that water from the ocean and carry it over the land where the ocean may not always go. And they distribute that mercy in the form of rain on the parched, burning forest fire of this material world. So yenye chapapa yadapa shraya shraya shudyanti tasmai prabha Vishnave namah. That means the devotees, those who have taken shelter of Vishnu, they're doing what the brahmanas cannot, what mere brahmanas cannot actually do. So if someone is caught up or hooked up or fetishizing this brahmanhood position, this is a great misunderstanding. There's also a story Prabhupada told. One time a devotee, after some travels, came before Srila Prabhupada, and he told a story to Prabhupada that they had visited one temple. I don't remember where the temple was, somewhere in India. And the pujari at that temple was very pleased to see the Western devotees exhibiting such devotion and chanting and, very much appreciating and doing very properly the worship in the temple, appreciating the deities in this temple. So the local pujari, the Indian pujari, was very pleased. So he said, oh, you're so nice, you're worshiping the deity. I offer you a blessing. I bless you that in your next life, you can take birth as a Brahmana. So when the devotee told this, Prabhupada laughed, and he told a story. And the story is, once I can't remember the exact political positions, but let's say one day the governor of a state was touring the state. The governor's the leader, the big head political position of the state. And he was touring the state, and he came to one village. And while he was meeting with the citizens, there was one old lady who approached the governor. She was having some legal difficulty about the transference of land, some, passing the land properly, and there were some legal impediments, and she wasn't able to get it done properly. So the governor looked into it and very quickly gave some orders, and the whole problem was taken care of, and the land was transferred properly. And the old lady was so happy. She said, oh, thank you so much. I bless you that you can become the chief of police. Now, because and the idea is because she's a simple village lady, she has no idea of the power and the influence of the governor. To her, the biggest position she could think of is the local chief of police. So the governor is way, way, way above the chief of police. But in her limited understanding, she thought, oh, chief of police is big position, so offer blessings like that. So the Brahmana who was blessing the devotees, oh, you could become Brahmana in your next life, not understanding that by being Vaishnavas, they had already far surpassed mere Brahmanhood. And according to their ability and their practice and their devotion, they don't need to take birth as a Indian Brahmana, rather going straight back to Godhead without that sidetrack of this mundane Brahmanhood. So this is the point that, right or wrong, Lord Vishnu took it that, oh, my devotees, Jai and Vijay, their behavior has reflected ill on me. These are Brahmanas. The Brahmanas are very important in society and the leaders of society. They must be respected. And at the same time, he's making them real Brahmanas by making them devotees. So therefore, yes, accept this curse. I accept this curse. I'll allow it to happen. In fact, I take it as if I myself had committed the offense. So many nice things in this pastime and in these verses, that Lord Vishnu, his loving relationship with his devotees, his concern for Brahminical culture, the sweetness of his pastimes, not only in Vaikuntha, but leading to him play fighting with his devotees as Ravana and Kumbhakarna, Shishupal and Dantavakra, and Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha in these wonderful pastimes, so that the Lord can play and have even more intimate relations with his devotees. So many beautiful things are being described in this pastime. Thank you very much, everybody, for your very kind attention. If there's any questions or comments or discussion, we can do that now. Hare Krishna. Yes, Vishnu Kada Prabhu.
Thank you, Acharya Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, thank you.
Very nice class. I appreciate it. Sometimes, like in the Nectar Devotion, we read that the four Kumars were impersonalists, Mayavadis. And as such, they weren't completely pure devotees. So, what would you say about that in light of the discussion by Lord Vishnu here?
Yeah, that's interesting. First, I'll say, as far as them being Mayavadis, there's a discussion with Srila Prabhupada where a devotee was making a distinction between Mayavadi and Brahmavadi. And the distinction is that the four Kumaras were Brahmavadis in that they were absorbed in Brahman, as a proper Brahmana is, but they weren't explicitly worshiping Vishnu Bhagavan, whereas a Mayavadi actually decries the worship of Vishnu or considers it to be Maya. So in that sense, you could make it. He also said in that discussion about Mayavadi and Brahmavadi, he said practically they're the same. So he admitted that there's a technical distinction, but practically they're the same. So in any case, the Kumaras were less offensive because they weren't decrying Vishnu. They were simply absorbed in Brahman. So that made them maybe not qualified, but that made them at least open to the possibility of actually becoming Vaishnavas, a possibility which they took and realized when they actually came before Lord Vishnu and smelled his lotus feet and saw his wonderful beauty and his qualities. But still, they were Brahmanas by any, Vedic definition. They were certainly absorbed in Brahman and understanding Brahman. So they were Brahmanas. And simply for that, they're entitled to not just some respect, a great degree of respect. Actually, Prabhupada said about Mayavadi sannyasis that even Mayavadi sannyasis, you can offer respect. You can offer respect to them, even though actually they can be tremendously offensive, but just by the social position, some respect is due. So what exactly, the four Kumars' mentality and position, I can't say in full detail, but they were absorbed in Brahman. But when the opportunity was presented, they were able to elevate themselves to Vaishnava. And because even before that, because they were Brahmanas, Lord Vishnu said, okay, you offended the Brahmanas. That's a big deal. Does that help at all?
Sure. Of course, they didn't actually become devotees, we say. It's until they saw Lord Vishnu and smelled the. So I'm still trying to grasp what the fault really of Jai and Vijay was, because as doorkeepers of Vaikuntha, not one of several sets of doorkeepers, uh, isn't their business to make sure that only pure devotees come in?
Yeah. Yeah, so that's interesting. And actually, I discussed that a little bit 2 weeks ago. That actually, and many of the acharyas discuss how actually there was no fault by Jai and Vijay. Uh, that they were actually helping the four Kumaras because coming before a great celebrated person or elevated person or respectable person naked is actually improper behavior. So they were saving the four Kumaras from committing an offense. Plus, Lord Vishnu had told them, guard the door, don't let anyone in to disturb, and they were not qualified to enter. And another point that Srila Rupa Goswami points out is that when Lord Vishnu heard about the offense, the so-called offense, he didn't say, bring the four Kumaras into Vaikuntha to come and see me and talk about it. He came out through the gate to outside Vaikuntha, which is without saying it, is a sort of implicit support of the actions of Jai and Vijay, that actually the four Kumaras shouldn't come into Vaikuntha in that state. So ultimately, I think we have to chalk it up to that Krishna is also invested in maintaining Brahminical culture, and also because it's this for the sake of the pastime, that it was all arranged like that. To teach, part of it is to teach us to respect Brahmanas and to respect Brahminical culture, and that we should be very cautious about offending Brahmanas, even, mere Brahmanas. And the other thing is that this pastime of Jai and Vijay falling, so-called falling, is such a wonderful and important and huge part of Vishnu's pastimes that, we can't even imagine these things not happening. The pastimes with Lord Ram, all of his fighting with Ravana and Kumbhakarna, and Krishna fighting with Shishupala. These are all such big, big, important parts of our Vaishnav canon and the Srimad Bhagavatam and all the pastimes and all the avatars, that we can't even imagine these things not happening. So he had multiple reasons for uh, letting this pastime go forward as it did, even though we can analyze that Jai and Vijay are actually not at fault. They're Vaikuntha-vasis. How could they possibly be at fault?
Thank you.
Is that?
That's very good. Yes, thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Anything else? Question or comment? Okay. Thank you very much, everybody, for your very kind attention. I
Thank
hope
you very much,
everyone.
Prabhu, for a nice class.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you.
I
A
hope
lot of
everyone's
points.
doing well up in Philly and staying warm. Take care. Hare Krishna. Vanchakalpatru.
Sarvasya Vasandhaveva
Patitanam
Pachitanam
Pavanebhyo